Alright, aviators, hello skygazers, hello flight simmers, gamers, skygazers, airplane lovers, welcome to Up and Away, relaunched, our second lesson, lesson 2. Brought to you by Project AVIATE. We'll be talking about how to finally get in the air, control our airplane, all that good stuff. If you're new to this channel, welcome. We're so excited to have you here, have you aboard, I should say. Please don't forget to touch down on the like and subscribe buttons. It really supports our channel, supports our growth, as well as expands our outreach for this Up and Away program that we're bringing to you today. We hope you all had a very restful break last week, or a great week. It's been 2 weeks. We're finally back. I'm just going to get right into it because we do have a lot of things to cover, actually, in this beginning of the lesson.
Before you start,
yeah?
Could you lower the volume of the airplane?
Oh, my bad. Alright, now we're good. Okay, so, first thing is first, in our post-stream email that we're going to send you on tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, there will be a survey in it, and we'd like to just get to know you guys a little bit more, get to know our audience a little bit more. You know, what interests you in aviation, or, you know, what goals might you have? These are not mandatory questions, it's totally optional. It's okay if you don't know exactly what your interest is in aviation or aerospace, but if you do, we'd love to know, because we want to cater our program as much as possible to you guys. And so expect that in tomorrow's post-stream email. That's the first thing. Second thing is next Monday is what? International Women's Day, or is National Women's Day? It's one of those. And it also happens to be National Women in Aviation Week next week, which means, as you might remember from our first stream, we talk about how we're going to do chill streams. And in those chill streams, we talk about, you know, things happening in aviation, or we celebrate key days in aviation. Next week is going to be our first chill stream this year. We're going to be talking about some influential women in aviation to celebrate National Women in Aviation Week. So expect that in our email as well. Finally, before we get any deeper into this lesson, we'd like to just talk a little bit about X-Plane Mobile, which we know we've been including in our emails as the flight simulator of choice that we're going to be using in our streams. And just to show you guys, when you open up X-Plane, if you've already downloaded X-Plane for iOS or Android, free for iOS or Android, you'll get a home screen that looks like this. It's got 4 buttons here. If it takes you to the tutorial, for now just skip the tutorial. We want to go into free flight. So the 3rd button that you see, go into free flight. Make sure you're on the Cessna 172 as shown on the top right of your screen. It should say Cessna 172. And if you like scroll up or down, you can pick like any paint scheme you want. Or in aviation, these are called liveries. So I guess the color of your plane. We primarily use this one, as you can see in the main sim I have in front of you here. This is the main paint we use. But once you do that, free flight, and then we want to go into, you'll get to, if you click the mountain button on the bottom there, you'll get to choose an airport. Go ahead and also switch this switcher to free. We're using the free version of X-Plane Mobile. And then in the search bar, go ahead and type in KSEA. And just click on that. And then go ahead and click the Start New Route button. And that should be it. You can also go into Edit Start Type and just make sure you select this thing where it says 16L. Go ahead and just select that. And then on the bottom right, you'll be able to click the plane button that looks like it's taking off. Just click that and it will open up X-Plane Mobile, and you will be exactly where we are right now. We're at Seattle Airport. We'll be in the Cessna 172 that you see in front of us at Seattle Airport, talking about flight controls and reading measurements and gauges and stuff. So that's sort of where we want to begin this lesson. But just as a recap of last week, we talked about last week how we want to get in the air, right? How do we get in the air? Well, we look to the birds that are in the sky, because birds fly, so we can take inspiration from birds. And what we learn is that birds have nice flat surfaces coming from their bodies called wings, and if we were to try and make a wing of our own, we might get a flat thing, like if we were to have a body and then just wings like this, just wings like that, we'll have a flat body. And if we were to look at this from the side view, we might get this piece right here, and we can manipulate airflow to generate lift, basically. You remember the arm wrestling argument? The air on the bottom wins the arm wrestle and pushes the wing up. If you don't know what this means, please go ahead and check out our last stream, or our previous stream after this one, so you just get a refresher. And then we also talked about how modern wings have this slightly curved design here, so that you can actually deflect this air more and create more lift. So that's why most modern plane designs have this curve here. And you can actually see that if you were to go into your Cessna 172 and change the view so that you have the outside view, just like this, you'll notice the same thing. It's curved. The wing is like curved like this and then slopes down like this. So that's essentially the fundamental design we're looking at here. And we also talked about how you can manipulate airflow. So you have this blue air coming to a wing, and then you could just add a bent surface on the back here, and that causes air to just shoot up like this, which forces our little surface here down, as indicated by the white arrow. Just like if you push against a wall, you feel the reaction. You push, feel the reaction. It's just like that. So this is where we left off. This is where we want to sort of get into what controls do we need to sort of get in the air. And there's no better person to talk about in terms of controlling our plane than someone who's very local to us here in the Bay Area. Let me get this slide. So how do we control our plane in the air? Right? We're not the only people asking this question. There was somebody else who asked this question long, long ago. The name is John Montgomery, and he was a famous aviator and a local legend, which I'll have you, Raj, explain a little bit of why.
Hey everyone, so this is John J. Montgomery. He's a bit of a local legend. And the way a modern airplane is controlled, it uses something called control surfaces, and that whole system was initially designed by this man. It was thought up by John Joseph Montgomery. So basically, he would build gliders and then launch them, and then try out different systems to control them. So he had all kinds of different systems where he would have different sorts of flaps. He would have different sorts of weights that he would carry, and he would kind of balance the weights around the plane to see if he could get it to turn and control it properly. And then he would in fact have entire systems to completely warp the shapes of the wings and all kinds of different hinged, weird, interesting stuff. And he lived quite a while ago. He was born in 1858 and then he died in 1911. So obviously that was quite a while ago. He died at the age of 53. And in fact, he died during a glider accident. So if you've ever been to Montgomery Hill Park, that's where he tested his gliders, because it has there's a nice hilly region which is suitable for the kind of testing that he needed to do. So in this very neighborhood in Evergreen, San Jose, he used to test the glider that you can see on your screen. And he's basically the father of modern controlled flight. And he passed away in a gliding accident at Montgomery Hill Park. They named the park after him.
Oh, yeah, and if you're wondering a little bit about that hill, I think I went there. I biked there last week or so. It's this hill. So, oh wait, you can't see it. Sorry. If you're wondering where this hill is, well, you can actually go here and see where John Montgomery tested his planes. It's this very hill. Get a nice view of the whole San Jose area.
Yeah, you can look. There's a sign.
Oh yeah.
There's a sign behind Nikhil where he's standing. It talks about John J. Montgomery and all the things he did in Evergreen. So actually, he was pretty active throughout California. He was born in Yuba City, and he did a lot of work in San Diego as well, but towards the end of his life, he was working here locally in San Jose, in Evergreen, in fact. But yeah, that's John J. Montgomery. And if you've ever heard of John J. Montgomery Elementary School, that was named after this man as well. But yeah, he's quite crucial to modern aviation. He figured out how to control a plane.
Yep. Thank you, Yuvraj. So
No problem.
we're gonna go ahead and get some inspiration from this guy a little bit, and let me get rid of the slide. So he invented controlled heavier than air flight, right? Airplanes are obviously heavier than the air because, well, if you were to just drop one, it falls. It's heavier than air. So why don't we take a look at what we stopped here, right? We can manipulate airflow and cause this surface to go down. Why don't we use this kind of theory to our advantage? Let me expand this a little bit. We're going to use this theory to our advantage here. Because if we were to, let's say, if these were the two wings on the airplane, so this is the left wing and this is the right wing, right? And it's drawn a little bit thicker here, just so you can see what's going on. If we were to implement something like this, say on the right side, so if we had like a little deviating surface here, and then that caused airflow to go up like this, we would end up forcing. Sorry, I drew that in reverse. If we were to get rid of some of these arrows here, pretend these arrows don't exist right now. If we were to direct some airflow going upwards here, we would be able to force this side of the plane down, and therefore force this whole side of the plane to roll this way, which causes the whole airplane to sort of roll. And as a result, what you get is the plane turns in the air by rolling, just like that. And it's the same thing. You can reverse it. You can actually, while this plane rolls to the right here, you can have the left side, instead of angling its extra surface here, instead of angling it upward, what you could do instead is angle it downward. So if you were to angle it downward like this, you'd cause airflow to go down, 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 just like this, and inevitably force this whole surface up, which this does. You can have like a little extension here that forces air down, just like this, and you force air down like this, and that causes this side of the plane to go up. And so what happens is, when you have the left side of the plane going up and the right side of the plane going down, you get this roll indicated by the blue arrows here. And that's how a plane turns in the air. Similarly, you can also use the idea to pitch an airplane. You can have the airplane pitch using this exact technique. If you were to go ahead and add that little flap thing here and send airflow like this, you could force the back of the plane down and therefore the front of the plane up. And as a result, what you get, well, let's make this a nice looking plane. As a result, what you get, the plane angles up and then goes up, just like that. And then if it wants to go down, you would just make this back surface here, you would just make it go down. That's all that's happening here, basically. So we've learned how to manipulate airflow. That's all that's happened here. So what we're gonna do right now, instead of just, seeing all these lines and air and all this stuff on a drawing, I wanna actually show it to you in the sim. So what we're gonna do right now is fly. I hope you have your X-Plane Mobile opened up. And we're gonna go into the cockpit here and just get ready to fly. Don't worry about all these gauges and stuff, and don't worry about all of it for now. We're going to go over it, some of it in this stream. But right now what I want you to do is, let's see if I could probably show you I'd probably rather show you in X-Plane Mobile first, just so you get the feel of it. So let me open this up. So you'll see this once you open up your X-Plane Mobile, and just do exactly as it says. Hold the device comfortably and then tap the screen to begin. So I'm gonna do that, just do that. And then all we're gonna do is you see this thing on the left here? Just go ahead and let me make this a little bigger. You'll see a red button on the bottom left. When you press it, it will turn blue. That indicates that the brakes are released. So just release the brakes, just like how in a car, if you want to go, you release the brakes. And then send the slider, you see the left slider here, forward. And if you still have this problem of your plane going to the left like that, go ahead and use this slider here that you see on the bottom right to allow your plane to either go left or right like this. So just try and keep it as straight as you can, and then you're just going to send it into the air like this. If I can keep it straight. And right about now, after a couple seconds of doing this, just go ahead and tilt your device back just a little bit. Go ahead and tilt your device back just a little bit. Not too much, like me, but just enough to get you into the air. So go outside. And now we're in the air. As you can see, we're in the air. And finally, the last thing I want you guys to do is to go ahead and press the three lines on the top right and just press the flight model button. And press it how many times? Yeah, press the flight model button 3 times so you get all these lines. And yeah, then we should be good to go. So once you get in the air, just have it like that. Alright, so this is where you'll start noticing the effects of the flight controls that we just talked about. If you were to... Give me 1 second. Okay. Alright, I'm also going to just take off on here. It's a little bit easier for me to demonstrate on here. So, we get in the air. And allow yourself to sort of feel the forces of the airplane as you fly around. It might be a little bit of a struggle at first, but make sure you had your device calibrated properly. All right. First things you might want to notice are if you were to when you tilt your device back, when you lift it off into the air, this happened. Let's take a look at this for a moment. If I were to tilt my device back, you see that? It's very slight, but what's happening is this surface right here, which is called an elevator, causes your plane to go up, just as I'd mentioned when in the drawing. What happens is, here we go. Let me pause it like this. So when it's like this, you'll notice it's slightly tilted. It's slightly tilted back here. And that just means air is being forced upward like this. And as a result, the back of the plane's being sent down so that the rest of the plane tilts up. And that's why the plane climbs. This is how we're taking advantage of the movement of air. And similarly, if you were to tilt your device to the left, you'll notice this left side of the plane starts to go up. So if I were to tilt, let me pause it as yeah, there we go. When you tilt your device to the left, this happens. You'll see that this side of the wing here has a little surface that's like jutting upward. Let me find a good angle to look at this from. Is this a good angle? Yeah, there we go. You'll notice that the plane, this little surface here is like angled upward from the wing. And as I showed you in that drawing, that just means that the air is coming from here and being sent upward like this. The air is coming from here and being sent upward. Just sent upward. So what that causes the left side of the plane to do is to drop down, while the right side of the plane lifts up. So what happens is this, or I guess if you're looking at it, is it in reverse? I guess I should do it like this. So when you're looking at the left side of the plane, left side of the plane is going down, right side of the plane is going up, and as a result, the plane rolls to the left, basically turns to the left. And finally, we figured out how to maneuver ourselves in the air. Like, the big question we had was, once we know how to lift ourselves into the air, we want to actually get somewhere. But how do we get somewhere, right? We need to be able to turn the plane. We need to be able to go up, go down, so we can actually fly. And this is how we do it. it takes that one type of manipulation of air to allow ourselves to both turn our plane and to pitch our plane up and down. And if all this sounds a little complex in words, then I encourage you to just keep on flying. Just keep on flying an X-Plane Mobile and feel the airplane changing. Feel the airplane pitching up and down as you tilt your device. And feel the plane rolling left and right as you tilt your device accordingly. And soon enough, you'll begin to understand why this works the way it does. So, any controls that we missed? Yeah, there is actually one more kind of control, and that would be, you might have noticed that we have like a little back fin here. We have a little bit of a back fin here. This one we won't worry about too much for now, but just know that with this we can actually if you saw that slider on the bottom right, that it adjusts this. You'll notice that the plane can not only roll side to side, but it can also shift horizontally side to side, kind of like if you're in a swivel chair and you shift horizontally side to side. We call this yaw, but basically it's the same idea here as in the drawing. If you notice, if I were to, let's say, yaw to the right, let me pause here, you'll notice that this back fin here, which is called the tail of an airplane, this back fin sort of angles itself to the right, and that causes air to come from the front and get thrown to the right, just like this. And that causes, as a result of the air getting thrown to the right, the back of the plane gets thrown to the left. And because the back of the plane goes to the left, which causes the front of the plane to go to the right, and as a result, we're headed this way, to the right. So that's just yaw, and these are all our fundamental flight controls that we have here. So now it's time for a little bit of a quiz, and I'll have Steven take care of this from here.
All right, so in the picture, all right, so on the bottom right, we see a yoke that is being pushed to the left. And which picture does that yoke correspond to? Does it correspond to the bottom one or the top one?
Okay, we hope you had a little bit of time to think about it. In case you're wondering, that thing on the bottom right, as Steven said, is called a yoke. We're gonna go over that in a second. And that's basically your device. If you're tilting your device to the left, that's the same thing as rotating that yoke to the left. It's like a steering wheel. Rotate your steering wheel to the left, rotating the yoke to the left, tilt your device to the left. It's all the same. So now that you have some time to guess, we hope you guessed the top picture. Indeed, when the pilot rolls that yoke to the left, the intended result is for the top picture to happen, and that top picture shows the left side of the left wing slightly tilting upwards, which causes the plane to roll to the left, and that's the intended effect of this. So, So, Steven, why don't you just quickly go ahead and go over the basic flight controls that we have now inside our plane.
All right, so if you guys saw the controls on the outside of the plane, such as the flaps and not the flaps, like the little portions on the back of the plane and the sides of the wings, so they correspond to the controls inside the plane. So now we're going to look at how the pilots actually control those I guess control surfaces. Yeah. And so there's mainly two types of controls that pilots use. One is called the yoke, and the other one's called side stick. A side stick, it's mainly found in Airbus airplanes. So Airbus is one of those bigger commercial passenger airplanes. Not many general aviation or smaller aircrafts have it. So more like professional flying and commercial aircrafts have it. The side stick is the one on the top. So there's two pictures on the slide that you see. The top one is a side stick. It's just a little, looks like a joystick. Some people call it joystick. Just on the left side for the captain. The bottom is called, on the bottom picture is called a yoke. A yoke is what most airplanes have. It's a little control, and it looks like a little steering wheel.
It looks
That
like
controls when you turn it to the
It looks like Tesla's
yeah.
new steering system.
When you move that control to the left, right, forward, back, you are moving the controls on the outside of the airplane.
All
And
right.
then we have the power throttle. Or would you like me to go through those too, or?
We'll go over that in 1 second. So,
Okay.
yeah, let's just take a look outside. Now that you know, I guess we should probably start naming these controls that we're talking about. So, all these little, surfaces on the back here. We had a surface on the back here. This one goes up and down. We have on the wings these surfaces that go up and down that cause the plane to roll, as you know. All these have different names, but they just in different spots on the plane, which is why their result on the plane is slightly different. So, Steven, what are these called? I mean, you already know, but
So those are called ailerons.
yep.
They control your
Whoa.
bank. Bank is when you go left and right, which you're banking to the right and now to the left. So that control surface is called an aileron.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back here.
Which I don't know how to spell, but
I'll just put it in the chat. But all right, now
I
we
think
have
it's
the
A
back
E
here.
I. Oh,
It's
okay.
AI.
Now in the
L.
back. Oh, okay. Now in the back, the horizontal one, not the vertical one, but the horizontal one that's moving up and down right now. That's called the elevators. They're called the elevators because when you push the yoke up and down, your plane goes up and down. So the elevator, which you might take like at a mall or somewhere, it takes you up and down, and that's why it's called an elevator.
Yeah. And I guess the last one.
And the last one, the big little fin,
The
big little shark fin on an aircraft. That is called your rudder. The rudder basically makes you yaw to the left and the right.
Just like this. So it's more of a horizontal sideways movement rather than a rolling movement. Because you see in this case the plane isn't rolling, it's just shifting side to side. Whereas conventionally, if you've been on an airplane before, you probably have felt an airplane turning by rolling. Most planes turn in the air by doing this. So yeah, these are the fundamental flight controls that we have inside our airplane. And it was sort of these controls that John Montgomery started figuring out as he was doing his tests on those gliders. And I say glider, notice we haven't talked about how the plane's actually moving forward. We haven't talked about that yet. For right now, we're pretending this plane is a glider. And so it just has these ailerons, the elevators, and the rudder that you see here just has these and is flying through the air. And these are the stuff that John Montgomery figured out in his experimentation with gliders in Montgomery Hill Park, essentially. And now, I guess now we can address the elephant in the room. Obviously, this plane is going forward. It had to take off. It accelerated down the runway really fast. It's being hoisted to the air really fast, which means it's going forward. And that's simply because we have a thing pulling us forward. And what's this? Steven, I'll just have you go for what's happening here at the front.
So, of course, we have the engine. The engine works almost the same as all the other parts of the aircraft, which makes you turn or fly in different directions. But now, the engine is basically in a position where it pulls your aircraft forward. Or in some airplanes, it pushes you forward. But as you can see, those lines, those vector lines, it shows you that the aircraft is going forward because the vector lines are in front of the aircraft.
Yeah, see these little yellow arrows that you see indicate that this engine right here is pulling the aircraft forward. So it's essentially what it's doing is manipulating the airflow very similarly to our wings and our elevators here and our rudder there, except this time it's doing it in a direction that causes the plane to get pulled forward while this engine rotates. And by the way, this rotating engine, at least on our Cessna here that we're flying, is called a propeller. You might have heard that before. But yeah, that's essentially the engine on our Cessna here. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next big question that we have going on here. And that is, well, now that we know how to control our plane, right? Now we're at the stage after sort of John Montgomery's testing where he figured out, okay, I can move around in the air by rolling my plane, by pitching my plane, by moving my plane side to side with it like this. We can actually get places now, once we're in the air at least, right? But also you want to be able to know, like, let's say, how hard do I have to roll the plane? Or how fast am I going? Or, you know, questions like that so that you can fly more safely. Like if you were driving a car and you didn't know how fast you were going, you didn't know how much fuel, you didn't know how much gas you had left in your car, that would probably worry you a little bit. Like you're just driving your car around aimlessly, hoping you're driving safely. We want to fly safely. That's just the next big question here. And so what you see on the slides are the 3 key things that an airplane does as it's flying. And these 3 things are, it's going forward, which you see with that top question mark there. A plane moves forward. And on the bottom left, you see a nice big plane there called the Boeing 747. A plane goes up and down, pitches up and down. And finally, as you see on the bottom right, a plane rolls. A plane turns in the air by rolling from side to side. And as a result of it turning, it changes directions. You might have seen in your car, I think most cars have compasses, right? When you turn, you notice the direction that you're going changes, and you probably have seen a compass. If you were to just start spinning around, your compass changes direction. So as a result of the plane rolling, we're also changing our direction. Now, how do we think about all those things, right? So let's go ahead and think about those things right now. So our plane is moving forward. We want a way to measure our plane's forward movement, right? We want to know how to measure our forward movement. And similarly, we want to be able to know how much our plane is pitching up and down. We want to be able to measure that. And we want to know how much our plane is rolling from side to side so that we know how to do it safely. These are things we want to measure, basically. These are things we want to measure. So, let's go ahead and start building our cockpit, our driver's seat, our pilot's seat. Let's start figuring out what gauges, what measurements do we need in order to figure these things out while we're flying, right? Well, forward movement, that's easy to break down. How fast are you going? That's your speed. Your speed is how fast you're going forward. And in aviation, this is measured in nautical miles, so not normal miles. I forget what the conversion is. What's the conversion between the two?
I don't know.
Yeah. And just know that a nautical mile is larger than a normal mile that you're used to, and it's measured in nautical miles per hour. And we shortened that to knots, by the way. Also, sorry, I think the tablet's delayed here again. I don't know how to fix that. But similarly, we want to pitch up and down. So we want a way to figure out how much we're pitching up and down. And one way we can do that is, what if we had like a gauge that showed a fake picture, a silhouette, I guess, of our wings. So what if we had like a silhouette of our wings? Just 2 pieces of wings here with a body in the middle. And what do you notice when you pitch up and down if you're in the cockpit? What do you notice is happening when you pitch up and down? Let's actually see. If you pitch your plane up and down, what changes in your field of view? Let me push down, pull up, push down. What changes in your field of view? That's right, you might have noticed this horizon is changing. The way you look at the horizon changes every time you pitch up and down. So maybe we can think about how much we're pitching up and down in terms of the horizon. So why don't we do that? Why don't we just make our gauge like a blue sky and then a brown yellowish ground, and then put that in a gauge. And then if we're pitching upward, what would you expect to happen? You would expect that you see more blue. You would expect that you see more blue on your little gauge because you're pointing towards the sky, so you see more blue. When we pitch up, you see more blue. And similarly, if you're pitching down, you would see more yellow, more of the ground. Because when you're pointing down, you're pointing
yellow.
Huh?
I think it's brown, not yellow.
Oh yeah, brown. Sorry. Sometimes it's all sorts of different colors.
There's a joke in aviation that says keep the blue up.
Always keep the blue up because that means you're climbing, and you want to be climbing, right? That's how you get in the air. So that's how we can figure out our pitch. And then finally, our roll, we can accomplish with very much the same thing. Take a look at our horizon now. When we roll the plane, what do you see happening to the horizon when you roll the plane? Notice, it's still horizontal in a way, but relative to your cockpit here, it's like it's slanted. So every time you roll the plane, the whole world starts to tilt outside, right? Maybe we can measure that. Maybe we could go ahead and use that as our measurement of roll. How much is the horizon tilting? Yeah.
Do you think you could kind of zoom into the attitude indicator and show the people in close-up detail?
We're getting there.
Cool. Just wanted to confirm.
So, we have 4 minutes though. Just saying, we have 4 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That's okay. Wow, that went by fast. We can finally just do this. Right, and then where is it? We can have our plane tilt relative to the horizon. And as a result, yeah, it's like Yuvraj said, you get this gauge in front here. This is what's called our artificial horizon, right? And it's just that. The blue sky, brown's the ground. The orange stuff in the middle is a silhouette of our wings, and it's showing us how our plane both pitches and rolls in the air. And as I mentioned earlier, forward movement speed measured in knots or nautical miles per hour. That's this left gauge here. This tells us how fast we're going. And because an airplane goes up and down, obviously, we're changing how high we are in the air. So we're going up and down, we're changing how high we are in the air. And this is referred to as altitude, how high we are in the air. Might have gone, if you ever climbed a mountain, you go several thousand feet high. Kind of like that. Or a pilot might announce they're at a cruising altitude of 30-something thousand feet. And that's measured by this gauge here. Where the shorthand is the thousands and the longhand is the hundreds. So if you were to read this like a clock, right now we are at 2,400 feet. Indicating.
Oh, and then the really thin one is 10,000s of feet.
Yeah, so there's like a triple clock here.
Mm-hmm.
That would be 10,000 feet. I hope you're not climbing that high in this plane, but... Yeah.
Technically, you can safely. I think you can go up to 14,000 in a Cessna, right, without like passing out and stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You can probably go higher, but once you get to 14,000, if you cruise for 30 minutes, you need oxygen.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a requirement. You're not going to pass out, but...
I
if
see.
It's a requirement, then it's going to assume that people would pass out.
Yep.
Makes sense.
And finally, we've got, as I told you, you probably saw the compass on the slide. When our plane banks to the left and right, we're changing direction. That's all that's happening here. We've got a nice fancy compass here, because the first thing you'll see is there's north, there's west, there's south, and east. This is just a compass, or more formally known as our heading indicator. What direction are we heading? And the last two here, the one on the left is very similar to the artificial horizon. This also shows us how we're rolling, how well we're rolling. We're going to talk a little bit more about what this does. This one's a little bit more complicated than the other ones. But then lastly, we have this, which tells us how fast we're going up and down, which you see vertical speed how fast we're going up and down, how fast we're going vertically. And this is measured in 100s of feet per minute. So the 5 would be 500. The 10 would be 1000, which is 1,000. I hope you don't say 1000. But yeah, that's just how fast you're going up and down. And so these are the fundamental instruments that create the 6-pack, the main 6 instruments of the Cessna 172. And it's way better than a family pack, according to one of us. So yeah, do you have anything to add?
All good.
Steven, you have anything?
Did we talk about vertical speed and turn coordinator, or are we just gonna skip that?
Yeah, so the thing, we talked about all of them. The turn coordinator is the one on the bottom left. We'll talk more about that a little bit later, because that one has a little bit more complicated use than just to look at.
So it gets a little messy, that one.
Yeah. But yeah. All right. If you have any questions, are there any questions in the chat that we should go over right now?
None that I
No.
see.
So just a quick recap: airspeed tells you how fast forward you're going. Your attitude indicator is the blue and brown indicator. It tells you your plane's relation to the Earth. So if you're turning, banking, pitching up, down, or up and down. And then your altitude indicator tells you how high you are. And of course, your heading indicator tells you your heading, your magnetic heading, which direction you're heading.
All right.
And that's a quick summary.
Yeah. So that's it. We've covered, just as a final recap of our lesson, we've finally figured out how to take advantage of the movement of air to allow our plane to roll and pitch. And we've finally figured out the gauges that we'll need in order to do all of that safely, which is called the 6-pack. So just to close off our lesson, these are the things we've went over. Once again, we'll have our email sent to you tomorrow morning about a background form, just to let us know what your interests are so we can cater our program more towards you. And chill stream most likely next week to celebrate National Women in Aviation Week. If there's no other questions, thank you all so much for joining us on today's stream, today's lesson on controlling flight and reading instruments. If you like what you see, go ahead and touch down on the like and subscribe button. Support our channel, support our growth, support our outreach. We hope to bring this to as many students as possible in an accessible way. So yeah, take care everyone, have a great weekend, and we will see you
great week
next week. Goodbye.